Hello and welcome back to Politically Incorrect. I'm Carmen Tom Christiano. You could call me whatever you want, by the way, Carmen, Tom, the Godfather, whatever. But that's why I always say that when I'm talking about my names lately, because so many people couldn't get used to Carmen and really preferred calling me Tom. So if you prefer calling me Tom, that's fine. And whatever you want to call me. CT, even Pete suggested CT today, our director. So anyway, that would be fine. Well, I wasted too much time already, but we have a wonderful show tonight. It's our annual Citizen of the Year show. And with me tonight, we have Town Manager Paul Cohen. How are you, Paul?
Very good, Mr. Cristiano.
Yeah, I didn't mention that one, but that's the best one. Give me the respect I don't deserve. No, I do deserve. And Paul, this is your, let's see, your 14th time on the show already.
Wow, I'm climbing up there.
Yeah, and you've been a town manager here?
6 years, 6 years. Yeah.
So it's over 2 per year on the show. That's great. Yeah. And you're always on our Citizen of the Year show and our annual anniversary show every April or May.
Which has cake, right.
Which has cake. That's the only buddy
Right.
might have cake.
That's right.
So thanks a lot for being here, Paul. We're going to have a good time, hopefully. And we have my good friend Carol Merriam with us tonight for the first time on the show. How are you, Carol?
I am fine.
Thanks for being on the show, Carol.
You're welcome, Tom.
And Carol was a past president of the Chelmsford Historical Society, and I've been working with you a lot since I'm on that board there, too, and we have a great time, don't we, Carol?
Oh, yes. No, it's a great board. Really enthusiastic people. Actually, the board's got better over the years, the last few years. Yeah, we're getting some younger people, and people are really interested, so this is good.
And the new president who took over from you is Becky Warren.
Right.
And we'll talk a little bit about Becky later on in the show.
Yeah.
So, and thanks for all that you've done for the Historical Society. I know you and your husband, Fred Merriam, worked so hard with that, and you're still doing a lot because you come to all the board meetings. And Fred is out there taking so many photographs and documenting the history of Chelmsford with all these glass slides, the glass photographs. He put that History of Chelmsford book together.
Right.
And if anybody wants it, it started with, what was it, Barbara Parker? Who started the book? Not Parker.
Eleanor Parker.
Eleanor Parker.
Right.
Okay,
He found
Eleanor
the
Parker.
file in a file cabinet, yes.
And then he worked 4 years putting
Right,
it
in
all
the
together.
basement with Eleanor.
Yeah.
Yes, as I tell people. Eleanor's dead.
Right, yeah. So anybody wants to buy that book, The History of Chelmsford, could either at the Chelmsford Historical Society, and we always have it at the 4th of July booth.
At the Copy Center.
The Copy Center, Lynn Marcellus Copy Center.
And they
in
sell
Alpine
them
Lane.
at the town hall, too.
And the town hall, yes. Trish has a lot of stuff over there, Paul's office. Great, well thanks, Carol.
You're welcome.
We'll talk a little bit about the awards pretty soon.
Okay.
Oh, and Carol, I forgot, you were past winner, you and Fred, Citizens of the Year.
Right.
Last year, I think it was.
And I have to say, I was the one that volunteered for 30 years in town. Fred was a latecomer, and he retired. And then I call him Mr. Chelmsford now because he knows all the history. He's just, because I was on the board for a good 12, 15 years before Fred joined,
And he's doing a great job too, as you are. It's amazing.
Yeah. And we're both blow-ins, so.
Well, I don't know about that.
No, I mean, we weren't born in town.
I know what you mean. Yeah, I mean either.
Yeah.
Well, thanks.
Yep.
Thanks you, Carol. And we have my friend Steve Roberts with us. How are you, Steve?
Good, Carmen. Good evening.
Your 6th time on the show.
Wow, get up there, yeah.
So, and so it's been about, 3 years since you've been involved in town politics? Since you ran for 2009, I think was the first time you were on the show.
Yeah.
So 6 times in 3 years is pretty good.
Keeping up with Paul, yeah.
Yeah, 2 a year, it's a good average. So Steve is a longtime member of the Open Space Stewards.
That's, I think, the first civic duty I took when I came to Chelmsford, yeah. Phil was waiting in my yard, I think, the day I showed up.
Yeah, with a shovel
literally
and a rake
waiting.
and everything. And you're also on the North Town Hall Committee of some sort, right?
That's right, the North Town Hall Advisory Committee, which oversees the Chelmsford Community Center.
Wonderful. We'll talk about that center later on in the show. Yeah. And you're also on the Permanent Building Committee,
That's
right,
right.
Steve?
Since 2009, I think, or 2010, right around the time the 2 town halls came up for consideration for rehab.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Do you like being on that committee too?
You learn a lot about how the town works and the state of all our buildings in town. So yeah, it's a great experience.
Wonderful. And you grew a beard for the winter months.
Yeah, I was hoping it would be a little colder, but unseasonably it's been warm. So the idea was prepare for our Armageddon here. The cold weather.
I know what you mean. Yeah. Well, maybe we won't get the cold. Who knows?
Maybe it'll come off.
Yeah. Well, and you have a new baby too. The baby isn't that new
He's
now.
not new
Well,
now.
how
He's
old
like
is?
18 months,
18
19 months now. Yeah.
And how's he doing?
He's doing great, except this week he's got a little bit of a cold and all that, the
Oh,
fun stuff
yeah.
that comes with the season. But he's doing well.
Oh, wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful. And Kodiak too. You have
Yep,
your nice,
our first. Yeah.
your beautiful white dog. Yeah. Well, thanks for being here, Steve.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
And we have my friend Steve, Dr. Phil. Stay away with us, Steve. Dr. Phil.
Yeah.
I call him, he's Chelmsford Dr. Phil. And Phil, as everyone knows, you're the lead open space steward in town, and you do so much for all the trails. You help lead everything that's going on in town. And later on, we'll talk about how much money you save the town just about every year. Thousands and thousands of dollars.
Tens of thousands.
Tens of thousands, yes. And you're also on the Oak Hill Study Committee, right? We'll
One of
talk
the members.
a little about that later on in the show.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for all of you for being here. And every year when we have our Citizen of the Year show, we begin with me talking, giving out the names of the previous recipients, since we kind of formalized the process in 2006. Then we started giving out the printed awards and framing them and everything. So let me just quickly read these names, and then we'll go on to the 2012 Chelmsford Citizens of the Year. So in 2006, the Citizens of the Year were John and Linda Shumley, Pat Maloney, the Permanent Building Committee, Reverend Mark Bishop, who was a chaplain in Iraq, Carrie Spidell, who was an acting town manager before Paul came on board, and a town treasurer too, and Mary Tiano. 2007 Citizens of the Year were Kathy Duffett, Phil and Deb Jones, our good friends, Laura McLaughlin and Donna Newcomb, Angie Toronto, and Jim Trebo, who's also a wonderful open space steward who does so much in volunteering for the town. It's unbelievable.
And he's in his mid-70s.
And he's in his mid-70s, yes. I didn't know if I should say that. But I think that's great to be in his mid-70s. And I see him out there cutting the grass all the time and working so hard. And in 2008, the Citizens of the Year were Len Doolin, who's a longtime town meeting representative and does a lot with the Rotary, et cetera. Walter Headland, who we just honored in Chelmsford Center recently. He has done so much for the town over many years, and of course is a World War II veteran and hero, and just a wonderful guy. And so he's still going strong here in Chelmsford, and he was a 2008 Citizen of the Year. And that's when Phil Stanway was a Citizen of the Year. And George Simonian, the former principal of the Chelmsford High School, and Evelyn Thorne, a school committee member of Chelmsford. Then the 2009 Citizens of the Year were Carol and Walter Clevin, and unfortunately Walter passed away this year. Cindy McLean, who still does so much on the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail bike path. I bike there, as most of you know, almost every day, and I see Cindy out there on the weekends because I believe she has a full-time job, and she's out there cutting the grass by the center where the kiosk is, and throughout there, she and her husband, John Edward, he's out there collecting trash with plastic bags. They're wonderful unsung heroes, I think, in town. That's what this award is all about. Mostly people who are a little bit below the radar. Kathy Bruff, town meeting rep and a longtime volunteer, George Ripsum, and Charlie Wojcik, all were 2009 Citizens of the Year, and we started the Green Citizens of the Year in 2009. That was Donna and Henry Parlee, wonderful friends of ours and great people, and Santiago Rios, who also volunteers a ton of time with the Open Space Stewards and over there in Varney Park particularly. The 2010 Citizens of the Year were Bob Greenwood, George Merrill, Mary Franz, Ralph Hickey and Barbara Renison, and Roy Early of the In-Town Report fame. And the 2010 Green Citizens of the Year were Bob Morse and Jennifer Almeida. And Jennifer right now works in the town clerk's office, which is a new position for her. The 2011 Citizens of the Year were Deb Taverna, and all of these people, I could go on, but I can't take too much time, but they do so much for the town. Carol and Fred Merriam, and Carol is here tonight with us. Sheila Pichette, Madeline Needles, who's done so much as the president of the Friends of the Library for many, many years. And the 2011 Green Citizens of the Year, and green, of course, means environmental consciousness, helping to preserve the Chelmsford environment and landscapes. Ken Dews, Mike Riley, and John Smith. So those were the previous award winners of Chelmsford Citizens of the Year. And now we'll go on to the 2012 Citizens of the Year. And Paul, maybe if we could start with you, with Lynn, please.
Sure. Okay, you're gonna hold it? Okay.
I'll hold it.
It's an honor to present Lynn Marcello as a Citizen of the Year. It's when you sort of think of Lynn, you're sort of amazed that she hadn't already received the award when you go through all that list of people, because just her omnipresence in the community. Most notably today, you see her as the chair of the parade committee, and she's been doing that for several years now since they took over it back in 2007. She's also actively involved in the Rotary, as you noted earlier, Chelmsford Business Association, and also with her extensive history with the Housing Authority. In fact, the housing units off of Highland Avenue are dedicated to Lynn. And so, again, she's just a consummate volunteer and has worked so tirelessly on behalf of the town of Chelmsford. So it's so fitting for Lynn to be recognized this year. And I know Maya, and I speak for everyone, their best wishes go out to her.
Yes, thank you. Would anyone else like to add anything other than, and I will, because as Carol and I know, Lynn Marcello has a company called the Secretarial Shop on Alpine Lane.
Chelmsford Copy, yep.
Chelmsford Copy and Secretarial Shop. And so she lets us, the Chelmsford Historical Society, sell these little coasters. They're kind of heavyweight coasters. They're only $4 each. And she lets us sell products like these over at her copy and secretarial shop without charging anything for it. She does it all for nothing. And she has the Chelmsford history books that Fred Merriam worked on. She has these note cards that we just came up with. So Carol does a great deal for the town. And I even think in the mid-1980s, I was on the Chelmsford, I still am on the Chelmsford Art Society, and I believe she was a president there, if I recall correctly, that she was a president of that art society back then. So for many years, Lynn has been working for the town of Chelmsford and doing a great job. Does anybody else want to add anything before we go on to the next award? Oh, sorry. No? Okay, great. Okay, let's see. Jeff, Dr. Phil Stanway, could you please talk about Jeff Apostolakis, please?
So much to say about him, not only about Jeff, but his entire family. Jeff Apostolakis has been a steward with us. He's the steward of Hart Pond. As soon as the town bought it, we ran into him and Barbara. They had a tragedy there, and they still took it over, and it wouldn't be as it was without them. They're there cutting the grass. They're there taking care of planting trees. Jeff is there almost every day along with his whole family. And not only is he there, but he also runs the Run for Riot's Cup, which donates money back to the policemen for health instruments. We have Air Pumpkin, which he's a part of, where we launch pumpkins into the Sheehan farm that now the town now owns. And we have the pumpkin float. And he's also a town meeting rep. And so he's an all-around great guy. He covers every aspect of the town. He's very involved in his family, very involved in sports, very involved in open space, very involved in politics. And what's most important to me is he makes up his mind. He's a great sounding board. He'll tell me that if something I'm doing is nuts, he will say it's nuts and explain it to me. And so he's just all around amazing guy, an amazing family. And it was an easy choice to pick for this year.
I agree. And Jeff was on our last show, as you may recall, and he did a great job. That was the first time he was on Politically Incorrect. He's now, I don't know if you mentioned, a town meeting representative, Precinct 9. And he also, did you mention the Armada, how much he does with that, and with you, and Hart Pond every
He's another
year?
crazy person who wades into the water in the middle of, just before Halloween, to float pumpkins out there.
And it's wonderful. This year, how many hundreds of people did you get?
About 300. And the Girl Scouts who were at the two events, they raised about $600.
Did they really?
So
$600?
yes.
That's
fantastic.
fantastic.
And we don't collect any money at any of those events. We allow the Scouts to sell all the stuff. So it's a great bonus, not for the families, but also for Scouting, which we're a huge supporter of.
And that event's getting bigger and bigger every year, and I'm enjoying it more and more every year, because I go in there, there's no little kids with me, but I like watching the kids have so much fun. They dress up in Halloween costumes.
Well, you can get a set of waders and join us out there in the water next year.
Well, I'm going to wear a costume next year, or paint my face or something, like your wife did. She painted her face beautifully this year.
Was she wearing a costume? I didn't notice.
Well, 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 it was a lot of fun. Hundreds of people, and it was great, and everybody was so nice.
never
So
do
that's
that.
another great. Oh, and then we have our walk every year. We
Yes.
could talk about that. The day before Thanksgiving walk, and this year it was like our most well attended. Right, this is our seventh
Yeah.
annual year, I believe, seventh or sixth or seventh. It began in 2007.
Good,
It
all
was
great,
amazing.
all great
Over
family
250
events.
people, maybe
Easily.
the day before
Yeah.
Thanksgiving. And Paul comes
Yep,
every year,
yep,
and
yep.
so many people come. Almost all the selectmen come, and many people. So
It's important to have free family events in town.
yes, and I'm glad they're totally free. I don't even like $5 each one. Why not just have it totally free and just if you can and come and have a great time? And the Thanksgiving Force is also kind of controlled by the Chelmsford Conservation Commission, right? So we have that free space there, which is so wonderful, and the open space stewards help maintain it so wonderfully, and we're helping to introduce everybody to it. It's just a wonderful facility. People could not only hike there, they could walk and mountain bike there. It's
You can do
fantastic.
all types of stuff there. It's wonderful.
All kinds of stuff. Well, our next award is for Becky Warren. Carol, Merriam, could you talk about Becky a little bit,
Yes,
please?
and because this is my first time, I came with notes, so
Oh.
if you don't mind.
Notes are
No,
great.
Yeah.
Notes are great.
Last year, after I talked to you after we got the award, I said, well, what about Becky Warren? She's done so much. So I was really happy to hear she was getting
Yes,
it this year. I've known Becky for the last 12 years as she served on the Historical Society. But I'll go to my notes here. As you know, Becky's family has been here for over 300 years. And as a young girl, Becky was introduced to the Chelmsford Historical Society and the Chelmsford history by her great aunt, Julia Frog, who was an enthusiastic volunteer on the Chelmsford Historical Society. So it was Julia's passion for the history of the town that really shaped Becky's future as an individual committed to preserving Chelmsford heritage. And so she tried sharing stories and getting artifacts and inspiring young people and all the citizens of town. And she's been involved in the Historical Society for 28 years. And she served on the board of directors as program chairman, tour guide, vice president, and currently she's the president of the society. And she also serves on the board of trustees. And I know the society's in good hands with Becky. She's also committed to saving open space in Chelmsford, as she's currently a board member and past president of the Chelmsford Land Commission Trust. She graduated from Chelmsford High in 1979, but in 2002 she was nominated for the Chelmsford High Alumni Association Hall of Fame for her work the last 28 years as Lowell Park Service as a park ranger and her volunteer service to the town of Chelmsford. She's currently the assistant director of the Songus Industrial History Center at the National Park, History Park. But the important thing, she manages the education programs for over 55,000 students. And this work over the years has helped develop her skills, which helps our town because she tells great tales of our history. And as you discussed, for the past 5 years, she could be found at the Thanksgiving Ground Forest the afternoon before Thanksgiving, engaging both the young and the old with the tales of Chelmsford history. So she's a perfect citizen of the year, and she's really a Chelmsford treasure as far as I'm concerned. Becky
She
just
is,
knows
yeah,
the history of the town.
She is a treasure of the town. I agree, and given that we both work with her on the Chelmsford Historical Society board, she's a wonderful leader too. And you and Becky are both wonderful leaders because you're so friendly and open and, non-judgmental, just a wonderful leader of a volunteer committee. You want somebody who's really nice to
Include
work
everybody,
with.
yes.
And Becky and you both, are just so friendly and wonderful. I think the Chelmsford Historical Society couldn't have been in better hands than your hands, and currently in Becky's hands.
Well, thank you.
She is a treasure.
Yeah.
And so are you, Carol, but thank you. Thank you. You did a wonderful job. And anybody want to add anything else about Becky Warren before we?
I would say that she's one of the smartest women I've ever met.
Yeah.
And when I started up the Chelmsford Open Space, she was one of the people I would talk to and one of the people who guided me on what you can do and can't do. And with the Chelmsford Land Conservation Trust, a great model. So I nothing but wonderful things to say about her, and she'll still remain a resource for me no matter how much she tries and hides.
Well, we'll find you somewhere, Phil, but yeah, well, thank you very much. Thanks. Well, maybe if we could go to Steve Rupp to
Sure.
talk about Laura Lee, our next recipient.
Yeah, it's a great honor to be able to represent and present Laura this this award. I think you touched on it the best when you said it's the folks that are the unsung heroes in the town. Right? I first met Laura back in 2009. She and a good number of her neighbors had organized and got together to help save North Town Hall. At the time, it was up for decision around selling it or moving ownership and responsibility off from the town. And I think the neighborhood, she's a neighbor adjacent to the building, got together, organized. It was not just Laura, but Laura definitely carried the group and got together with them and held an open house. And so I had toured both that and the Center Town Hall. We'll talk about that as well. Those two town halls, just showed a lot of great grassroots efforts, and Laura was right there with the folks saving it. And then throughout the years, she stuck by with, when we were doing the town hall utilization study, she'd come in and provide her input and kind of help shape where the community center is today. And then going on through the years, the past 4 years, she's now started participating in different parts of the committees, like the Historical Commission, and she's active in the cultural council. I probably can't name every single thing that Laura's on, but she certainly is. Was very active throughout those years. And then today, she's become maybe less in the grass and more in the limelight. She's very active in the community center, and she's very much carrying the operations of that building today. Without her heroic efforts, we really wouldn't have gotten off the ground like we have, and so she's done a really great job at pulling it all together. Now, again, it takes a team and a village to pull together what we've been able to pull off at the community center, but Laura's been kind of that steady hand throughout the years from when it was just an idea to where it is today. So.
And how is it going at the North Town Hall
It's going
Community
really
Center?
well. Yeah, we've got open officially in September, and we've got several programs that are very active throughout the week, and some bigger programs coming up as well that we can talk about.
Yeah, Laura, just about every month, she sends me an email and says, Tom, Carmen, which one, could you please post this on the Chelmsford Reps and Residents group on Facebook. And by the way, if you're not in that group, please join it. There's almost 500 Chelmsfordians in it now, and we publicize things like that, like what's going on around town. So on that list that Laura Lee sends me, there's like tons of activities going on there. Many classes, many kinds of activities, after-school programs. So it looks like it's going great as long as people are attending those, right?
Yeah,
Steve?
check out the website. It's chelmsfordcommunitycenter.org. She helps maintain the content, like you said. There's several. I think there's 9 activities that are consistent in this month alone. Between several different yoga type classes through the day and nights, as well as just one different events. Like we have on Sundays, Bonnie Rankin does a science meets arts type activities for young children, and we've got other things like Zen Tangle and another number of events. She'll be probably hitting you up for a fundraiser we have on the 21st of this month. One of the folks that use the building actually is putting on an event that the proceeds will go to support the community center. So, again, Laura's been kind of the one pulling all these activities together. She's we're starting to get we have a pretty good committee. As you mentioned, I'm part of the North Town Hall advisory committee, which Laura is as well. And amongst us and the other members, we're pretty much active in keeping the operations of the building going. But it's really Laura who's kind of the steady hand and keeping it all together. So she's more than well deserving of this. And the building looks great. It came out great.
Yes,
and
it did.
It's just such a pleasure to be able to to be in the company of folks like Laura.
Thank God the town saved, and the town's people, the taxpayers, saved both of these town halls, right? The North Town Hall and the Center Town Hall. Does anybody want to add anything about Laura Lee before we move on? And well, Paul, I wonder if you could talk a little bit about Susan Julian Gates, please.
Okay. Yeah, it sort of follows the theme, as we were just talking about Laura. I mean, Susan obviously is identified at this time with the Center Town Hall or the Chelmsford Center for the Arts. As Steve knows, having been on the building committee, Susan, along with Laura and the others, but in Susan's respect with the building, sat through the long design and construction process, but more recently, since the building opened on the 3rd of July, She's been obviously trying to bring the Chelmsford Center for the Arts, to fruition in terms of an ongoing community cultural resource in the center of the community. The most notable effort, obviously, they're getting a Steinway piano at the center, and just the diversity of activities that goes on there in terms of concerts. Most recently we saw them at the Holiday Prelude. The building was open and flourishing and a lot of activities. We're having our holiday party there on Friday night. So it's just really become a cultural center in the community. And Susan obviously has been the person behind that, putting in, as Steve was just noting for Laura, just untold hours of effort behind the scenes in terms of making things done, such as the custodial care of the building, but also promoting and growing and thriving events. So I mean, Susan's just done heroic effort in getting this organization off the ground. And similarly, she has an advisory committee that works with her for the Center Town Hall. But Susan really is sort of the point person for that building.
Yes, thank you very much, Paul. You've said it all, and I know I see her there a lot because I'm at the Chelmsford Center for the Arts quite a bit, and I see Susan there a lot, and she's always working so hard. A lot of times when they were just getting the chairs right in the beginning, she was there herself just about all day, taking the plastic off those chairs and trying to set them up. And so she's been doing so much over there, and all on a volunteer basis, right, Paul? Which is the wonderful thing. That's why mostly we honor volunteers with these awards, because they work at no financial pay, but everybody in town gets so much from what they do. And if we ever monetize it, it would be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars what all these volunteers do for the townspeople of Chelmsford. So thank you very much. Anybody else could add anything if you'd like, and if not, we'll go on to some of the local issues in town. Maybe I thought if we could start with Paul Cohen, the town manager. Oh, sorry. You just spoke, Paul, but one of the things, we have the Stop and Shop Plaza in the center of town, and everybody on Facebook and when you see them, they always want to say, oh, what's going to go in there? I hope something good goes in there. Do we have any idea, Paul, what might be going in the Stop and Shop Plaza?
At this point, there still is no clear identified tenant or use for the building. We most recently met with the officials from Stop and Shop about a month or so ago, and they're doing due diligence in terms of trying to find a tenant. They're sort of in a difficult situation. If they want to reutilize the buildings they're in, they have to invest a significant amount of money for the rehab, because those buildings go back to the 70s. If they want to change the use of the site, then obviously that involves a considerable investment. And what you're dealing with is a major international conglomerate. Ahold Corporation out of the Netherlands is the parent company of Stop and Shop and other companies. And of course, they have a vast portfolio of real estate. And so you're trying to work through that hierarchy. And so at this point, they're continuing to pursue alternatives for the best use of the property. What the town has tried to convey to them is that we would hope that it would bring something of value to the center. And when I say that, I mean, under the current zoning and uses, I mean, they could have, for example, they could have leased it for short term for like a Halloween store, or during the holidays, a limited use, or just some kind of a secondary retail operation. And again, where the heart of the community is in the center, historically, as well as the library and the Comm and everything else, we're asking them to sort of step back and look for a greater use. But obviously, they're looking at return on investment. That's what the company does. So at this point, they really haven't settled on a plan. And that's sort of unsettling for the whole situation, because it's not just the Stop and Shop and the Marshall's building. The Oddfellows building is adjacent to it. That is sitting vacant at the Sovereign parcel. And now, unfortunately, we just learned that DeShanes and Farrell has vacated the Fisk house.
Oh, really?
So now the Fisk house is sitting empty as well.
It is? That's very recent.
Yeah, that's very recent, within the last couple of weeks.
Wow.
The law firm relocated to Westford.
Oh.
And again, we know that there's some investment that needs to take place in that property. And so you can see that the major parcels in the center of the community are now vacated. And one presents a rather unique and rare opportunity in terms of the redevelopment, which is why Jim Lane and Evan Belansky and others who are volunteering on the Center Village Master Plan Committee are sort of looking at it. But obviously time is limited. So that's ongoing. And then we saw most recently the Aubuchon Hardware vacating on Summer Street. And so again, that presents a lot of opportunity and dialogue. Where it is privately owned, the town doesn't have a direct say in terms of, they could obviously lease their property or bring in tenants, under the current zoning. But what we can help them with is any assistance, and also if there had to be a rezoning issue. So what we're keep trying to convey is the town's there. We want to partner and be a resource. But again, a lot of it, unfortunately, I mean, they have stockholders and responsibilities, and they're looking really for the largest return from the property.
Yes.
There has been some discussion in terms of a mixed use, meaning some type of housing on the site, because obviously the new CVS, I think, is a brilliant example of what can be done well in terms of the design of the building, that the planning board did an excellent job. And, in terms of the appearance, it looks like it fits the site in terms of the colonial appearance. And now, obviously you have the Friendlies, which also has a little bit of a colonial appeal. And then the bank is there. And so now the question is, what do they do with the remainder of the site? It does appear that perhaps housing may be a possibility, but again, in this economic condition, is there a market for investors, to take that risk and the time involved to do that? So basically, the long answer is the short answer is we don't know, but we're encouraging it, and we're keeping the dialogue open.
Wonderful. So do you or one of your representatives talk to the owner of the Stop and Shop periodically?
I've talked with them. Evan Belansky, Jim Lane, George Dixon gets involved. Members of the Board of Selectmen. And we just keep conveying that we're there, we're interested, and we're trying to keep the dialogue open.
Wonderful. So they haven't given you or
No.
anybody an indication of
No.
what's going on and when they're going to make a decision?
Right. I would anticipate that you probably would see a decision within the next 6 months, because again, you've got a lead time before occupancy.
Yes.
So that's what we're anticipating will be the timetable.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for the update, Paul. And the Fisk House, that's brand new news.
Yeah.
And that's, of course, privately owned, and
Right.
that's up to that particular owner what they
Right.
want to do
'Cause
with it,
if you
right?
recall, it's all one. The parcels are all under one ownership, from the new Sovereign
Oh,
Bank
that's
branch
similar.
bank to the Fisk House, and then down to the old Oddfellows building. That's all one parcel, all owned by what's now a real estate trust.
Oh.
That Sovereign Bank is the lessee now. And the difficulty is and what's impeding the development of that project is Sovereign's Bank lease for all the properties expire in the year 2020. That's only 7 years away.
Yes.
And then they have a series of 5-year options. So for example, if you were going to go there or open a restaurant or retail or kind of an office, and you had to make an investment, well, how do you make an investment return in a 7-year period?
Right. Yes.
And then with these 5-year options, and that's presenting a real challenge.
Yes.
And so we're once again, Jim Lane as the Board of Selectmen, Evan Belansky, other members of the community are trying to see what is it we can do, because it's sat for the Oddfellows building, it's sat vacant for years.
yes, yeah.
And if you look at that current lease situation, there's nothing that would give anybody a reasonable expectation to believe that anything will happen to it in the foreseeable future because of this constrained lease. And trying to deal with the property, which is just a real estate trust, you really aren't getting any dialogue. So we try to push our development through Sovereign and their real estate partners who are managing the property and trying to find tenants. But that's a tremendous concern and a constraint in terms of what will happen there. And so,
Wow,
what's happening now is they're sort of just maintaining the exterior. We think that the Fisk House is in a sufficiently strong condition that it should not be too difficult to re-tenant.
Yes.
But we really want to see what the long-term plan is for the entire parcel.
And could I ask a simple question
Sure.
about this 7-year lease? Why can't somebody going into the Oddfellows building renegotiate a lease for that particular piece for like 20 years or 10 years or something?
Because you then would have to get some consent from Sovereign Bank, because they're holding a 5-year option at the
Oh, they
year
have the
2020.
option.
So they have a series of 5-year options. So they'd have to find it in their best financial interest, because it's not only would they have to extend the option on the Oddfellows building, they have to extend the option on the entire parcel.
Yeah.
And that's what
see.
hamstrings the situation.
Yeah, but it's possible it could be negotiated, right? If
Anything's
Sovereign went along
anything's
with
possible,
it, maybe.
yes,
and-
yes.
because, I agree. If you're going to put a lot of money into a building, you want a lot more than 7
Right.
years out of it guaranteed.
Exactly.
So that might need to be renegotiated, or if they could just use it without any extensive renovations for the 7 years or
You
something.
can't. In order to get into that building to meet today's building codes, accessibility codes, and so forth, you'd need millions of dollars
Oh, really?
to rehab
Oh.
that building to make it tenable.
Oh.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's,
that's too bad.
I mean, and I think that's where the exterior makes it a little deceiving. It's okay, the building looks okay
Yeah, it
from the
looks okay.
outside, but when you
Oh.
go inside to bring it up to current codes, accessibility,
not up to current
you'd have
codes,
to basically you've got to
apparently,
gut that building in terms of
Really?
the infrastructure.
It's not
of that building.
handicapped accessible?
No,
Oh,
not at all.
oh. I remember it was a bank though many years ago. It was nice.
Well, look at
for
the
that,
town
you
hall.
know,
I mean,
yeah.
North Town Hall was $2.8 million to
Yes.
occupy that building, and that really is basically it's a large hall.
Yeah,
And Oddfellows is the same thing, but obviously
Yeah.
you need a lot more investment in there, so you can
Yeah.
see how the dollars add up.
Yes, a lot of them need elevators these days,
Exactly.
right?
You need an
For
elevator, you need
accessibility.
entrances, bathrooms,
Bathrooms
plumbing,
redone.
electrical,
Yeah.
HVAC. You know,
Fire
you-
suppression.
yeah, yeah,
Very-
exactly.
Well, thanks for the update, Paul.
Yeah,
Thank
fire
you.
suppression, right? Would be
Thanks.
important.
Well, Phil, maybe could you tell us what's going on with the Oak Hill Study Committee, please?
I can tell you, as just a member of the board, they came up with their final recommendations, which was very exciting. It was 9-0 on the vote.
Great.
And originally, when it was went before the town meeting, the concept was to not just rush to judgment, but take a minute, take a breath,
Yes.
decide what was going to happen and for the best interest of the town. And after 21 meetings, 21 meetings so far, most of them running excess of 2.5 hours.
Wow.
Finally, we've beat out a recommendation which is going to be presented at the selectmen's meeting. But in a nutshell,
The next selectmen's meeting?
No, I
Excuse
think
me.
the second,
Oh.
end of January. I think
Oh,
the
the end of
28th.
January.
I think it's the 28th. Yeah.
but in a nutshell, it consists of, for the first 3 years, it would be under the Board of Selectmen, because the Board of Selectmen controls the Swain side, and then there is the Oak Hill side. And both the properties are really linked together. So it didn't make sense to try and have split it into two different groups, because then it wouldn't get done. So for the first 3 years, it will be maintained as the Board of Selectmen and then move to conservation if town meeting approves. But with the track record of Sunny Meadow Farm, which has only been 4 years, I think, 5 years, that went from broken down houses and fences and trash everywhere to really a gem in town.
Yes.
And that was run by the Board of Selectmen. And to bring that property up, I have a real lot of faith that 3 years from now, when it comes before town meeting as a finished product, if that's what the Selectmen want to do, it's going to be an absolute gem in North Chelmsford.
Yes.
On par with our larger conservation spots, like Thanksgiving Forest and Sunny Meadow and Red Wing Farm. We really need something of that quality
Yes.
in North Chelmsford. So I'm very excited about that. And we support it. As an Oak Hill member, I support it. And as a member of COSS, we also support it. We think it's a wonderful idea and a great movement.
Yeah.
But we were allowed to take the time to do it right. And
Yeah.
we weren't rushed. And it shows.
And it sounds like it would be preserved, right, is what the recommendation was. I read about the 10 or 15 recommendations that you came up with.
We went through a lot of
committee?
legal information that came in, and it was, we had the town lawyer come in, and the first item for suggestion is to move it from general purpose to open space for conservation. There's
Yeah.
a restriction on the land, and that will protect it.
Yeah.
That's the easiest,
So that's
quickest
great, yeah.
protection. And then it's conservation restrictions and all of those, but that
Yeah.
first one makes it so
Yeah.
they will not be building on it.
Yeah, which
Period.
is, I think, what everybody
And
pretty
that-
much wanted.
And that's going to go,
That's
the
a great
recommendation
step.
was to bring that to the next town meeting and have town meeting say, move it from general purpose to open space for conservation.
Yes.
If town meeting does that,
Yeah.
the land is protected, it cannot be built on, and all that nonsense can finally be put to
Wonderful.
sleep.
Well, later on in the show, we'll talk about some of the other open spaces that you're working with the Open Space Stewards. I've done such a wonderful job. But before we do that, I thought if we could talk to Steve a little bit more about the North Town Hall, the community center. What else is going on there?
Yeah, I should
And
pull
you
my
have
list,
the
'cause-
website, right? And
Yeah,
please.
so also Laura Lee sends me a list every month, and
Oh, yeah.
you know, probably the same list that she sends out to you.
Yeah.
I maintain the website chelmsfordcommunitycenter.org, and there's a number of activities. I mentioned the yoga. There's 2 or 3 different yoga instructors that come in both day and night. So
Yeah.
check out our website for the evening, the hours and all that. Certainly, that's been a very active use of the building. But it's a community center, right? So it's available to anyone for any use, whether it be private use or
Yeah.
public use. We've had, I think, just this month. This is a busy month with all the holiday different events. We've had
Yes.
bar mitzvahs. We've had sweet
Really?
16s. We've had holiday
Wonderful.
parties. We've had a lot of pageants. Get practice there. So there's been a lot of good little just small activities coming in throughout the weekend and weekday.
So they could rent out that main hall there for
Either
these,
one.
or
Though.
what-
There's a hall on the first floor, which is more like a meeting room, and
Oh,
then
yeah,
there's
they
a
could rent that out, or the big hall
or the big
upstairs.
auditorium, which has a full
Right.
stage and lighting and sound.
And the kitchen, that's on the
There's
first
a kitchen
floor,
on the
right?
first floor that's
Which is
available to
very
either
nice.
floor. Yeah.
Very nice, by the way. Do you know offhand what the charges would be to rent out?
Oh, I should look. I mean, I should
That's
know. I
okay.
should know because it's funny you say this. When we first started, we had Laura Lee come on as the the one that you'd call when you want to rent the space, just because keep it one person, keep it consistent experience. And then we had John Salyards on the building side, making sure the building the building was kept clean, the bathrooms cleaned, everything's cleaned. We've since moved over to a split role every 7 weeks. One of us rotates on a duty manager, so I'm actually on this week. So you're putting me on the spot because I should know these things. And so
Oh, no, that's fine.
I'm the one who opens up the building this week, and then we rotate to the next person on the committee. So I think it's very reasonable. I know the rates are maybe $10 an hour for a Chelmsford resident nonprofit.
Yeah.
Upwards to some of the larger events, we do charge more because some of those come with a cleanup cost, right? If it's a large party, we need to make sure we have that building ready for the next day. There's so some of the more regular events that go on. There's on the weekends, on Sundays, there's a church that comes in the morning.
Yeah.
So again, if there's an event on Saturday night, we have to have it ready for first thing in the morning on Sundays.
Yeah.
On Fridays, the first Friday of the month, we have a Scottish country family dance. It's kind of a cultural experience for folks to learn how to dance. I haven't actually gone yet myself, but it's learn some of the Scottish dance methods. Zen Tangle on Wednesday evenings. That's a lady who comes in and does kind of a relaxing art experience for you, and you can do things like that. I mentioned the winter solstice. It's a fundraiser that we're having on the 21st. One of the folks who rents out the space actually wanted to put this on as a benefit to the community center. So the proceeds to that will go to back to the community center funds and to support the operations. Bonnie Rankin, you may know her from better from the McKay Library. She puts on a program on Sundays. I mentioned Art Meets Science. It's a program for children.
Yeah.
We've got some other newer activities coming up. Fit Mamas, Active Kids, and Girl Power. I think those are going to start more in the January timeframe. But some of the after-school type activities for kids and mothers, and there's some circuit training I saw that's starting up this month as well. So a lot of different, as you can see from the list, between the publicly available events that go on to folks. I think we have tomorrow night just another like a grassroots group that wants to just come in and rent the meeting space. So if you have any use or need family parties or public events, gatherings you want to have, it's a community center for everyone in town. By the generous support of the town, throughout the years of rehabbing the building, we've now been able to get to a point where we can make this space available for folks to use.
Do you have many children going there after school for the
So
programs?
that's a good. That program discontinued. There was an after-school program initially when we started. They didn't, because of the timing. We feel when it got started after the school year, folks had already kind of set their children in programs. And it's hard to start a new program. So that group actually backed out in October and discontinued the after-school program. But it's opened up a huge block of time where we've been able to fill it with a lot of other programs. I think there's a lady looking to do dance troops after-school programs, and I mentioned a few of these other fitness classes for children. So things that that can just use the space alternatively. So it's a good it was an unfortunate change of events, change of plans. We're going to hopefully get that group back in, or a group like them back in for next school season. But for now we try to fill that time slot. So it's
wonderful. Wow.
Yeah, it's good.
Oh, it sounds like it's going great, Steve.
It is. It's much busier than we thought we'd be. In fact, it was funny. As duty manager, I was there cleaning up on Sunday evening, and sure enough, Laura Lee walks in. So even when she's on her off week, she's still active. So I think there's all these things that
Wow.
It's great to see the community coming together and carrying it forward. It's a community center for everyone. And
so it's thriving. It sounds like it's doing great.
It's in that phase one of kind of a startup, but it's thriving. We need to get to a point where we can sustain it and be less full time as individuals, and maybe get to more of a state where you maybe look at like the Rodenbush or something similar to that. Where we can have it be more self-sustainable.
I imagine, I don't know how you do it, but a lot of places, if somebody's teaching a course, like say in yoga or whatever, they would give half to the facility and they would keep half for their fee.
Yeah.
Do you run a similar, that way you can't lose anything, and the more students they have, the more money the Chelmsford Community Center gets.
Yeah, our rate is posted on the website. I know the committee talked about that when we voted in the rates for 2012.
Or do you charge a fixed fee?
It's a fixed fee, I think. I think we talked about doing that.
That way,
don't know if we have that in our. I know exactly what you're saying.
It's just there's more risk for both parties if you just have a fixed fee, or especially the instructor. She could be paying me $100 a night,
and no one shows up,
and nobody shows up, and then it's more difficult. But whatever your committee decides is.
We set the rates for 2012, knowing that we only had 3 months to really get started, and I think we're actually at our next meeting we'll be evaluating kind of the.
Oh, good.
The
You can see what works.
2013 rates,
Great.
And certainly that would be something that we need to consider.
And the Chelmsford Center for the Arts, Paul, is doing well.
Yes,
Is
yes,
that-
yeah,
Great.
same situation. Like
Yeah.
I said,
Okay.
what happens is, as I say, it's a growing pain. Unlike, very similar to a new business.
Yeah, it is.
Some ventures work out, others don't. You make shifts and changes, but in the end, it's all good.
Yeah,
That's
and-
the beauty of it.
And it's been a great partnership having the two buildings kind of open up relatively similar timing because Susan's always sending folks over our way. If
Okay.
we've got folks depending on the needs of the people inquiring.
Yes.
We've got two great assets from the town that we can help meet needs. There's another thing I completely forgot. And I know Laura's going to kill me for forgetting everything she did, but every year she's been putting on a she in the neighborhood have put on a Halloween parade,
Yeah.
right? And every year she'll put on a Halloween party in her backyard, for the kids to come by and get get some treats and stuff. This year we were able to really double that, triple that probably in size, and had it in the hall itself.
Wow.
So the community center opened up after the parade.
Oh, you did?
We
That's
we had a walk
wonderful.
around the block with the fire department,
great
and then
idea.
came into the center. And then we had storytelling and different activities.
And
in the
how many
auditorium.
hundreds of
At least
children
100
there?
or so folks. It was a donation event, and we made a couple $100s off of that just
Great,
from
great.
a donation. So it was a very well attended event. Yeah.
Yeah, we posted it on the Chelmsford Reps and Residents site, and some people said, "Oh, I never heard about this. This is wonderful."
Yeah,
You
well,
know, so it
I
was
think
a
as we get
Halloween-like
better,
parade, which is great. And then now going through the community center afterwards, it's a great community event, I think, for the
Yeah.
entire town, whoever wanted to go, right?
That's right.
That sounds fantastic.
Yeah, and we're going to start up, and I forgot to mention this as well. Starting in February, we're going to have monthly events that are sponsored by our partner of the Chelmsford Community Center, which is the North Chelmsford Village Association. So it's the nonprofit,
Yeah.
kind of like the library has Friends of.
Yeah.
This will be a monthly. The first one is a magician that's coming in February, and there'll be monthly events that will continue through 2013.
Nice.
To provide again family events at affordable rates. Yeah.
Wonderful, wow.
And
Do you still have chairs that people could buy for $50 each?
absolutely, yeah. We've only
Oh,
got half
wonderful.
the building filled, so
Oh.
we need about, I think it's about just under 200 capacity. So we have 100 chairs that have been donated to date. So we are actively fundraising. It's, as you mentioned, $50 a chair.
$50 a chair, and they could get
and
their
your
name or
would be put on the
whoever they
back
want
or memory
represent
of
on the
or-
plaque.
That's
And
right.
and if they want to do that, who do they contact, or?
Laura Lee.
Laura Lee, or the
No,
website again.
contact
You
the
can give the
website.
website
Yeah,
again.
no,
That's-
it's the ChelmsfordCommunityCenter.org.
ChelmsfordCommunityCenter.org, or they could
You
maybe
can
let
phone us
Laura
at
Lee know if they know
97
Laura.
I think our phone number is 978-656-1853,
Oh.
the year it was built.
Really?
So
Oh, that's a good number to have.
Can't forget that, yeah.
Great, yeah, thanks. Yeah, hopefully we can get more and more chairs sold.
That's right,
for that.
and-
Only $50 is great.
That's
It's
right.
a great way to give a little memorial to a friend or even a pet that might have passed away or whatever.
That's right.
Just get the little plaque there, remember your pet and everything.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Steve. Thanks.
Thanks.
Maybe, well, I understand the wires, Dr. Paul, are
Yep.
going to be buried pretty soon, right? In a few months or something?
Yeah,
maybe?
yeah. We're in a situation now, you're not seeing the work above ground because there are companies, the utilities, and Verizon, National Grid, and even the contracting in the town's part, we're actually pulling cable under the ground, and we're hearing from Verizon and National Grid that we think by the end of the winter, the connections will be completed, and therefore, in the spring, you will see the poles removed from the first phase, which is, as you come into the center on North Road by Academy Street, and then it goes around towards Erickson's Corner. So you should see those removed.
Great.
So it's finally after well over a decade, almost
Yeah.
15 years since its
And
origination.
yes,
I
it's-
didn't
I
think
remember.
I'd live to see it.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
I
That's
remember
great.
speaking about it, Paul,
Right.
as a town meeting rep going up to the
Right.
mic about 10 or 12, 15 years ago.
Right.
Excuse Excuse me.
Bless you.
You know, I don't think that's ever happened in 17 and a half years of doing this show. That's my first sneeze. It doesn't mean anything.
Allergic to us.
I'm sorry, excuse me. But it's going to look so great when those wires are buried.
Yeah.
Is it also going to be on Chelmsford Street that they're going to be buried?
That would be
as
the
well?
next phase.
Oh, the next
That's what we're
phase.
actually
Oh,
talking
okay.
to them now about what the next phase is. The next phase will likely include from Chelmsford Street, from Fletcher to to the center, Erickson's Corner,
Yeah.
and then going into the center, about to where the culvert is. Where the water rushes under
yeah.
the waterway by the Oddfellows building,
Yeah, yeah.
and it goes, as you know, it goes across by the card and gift shop and River Meadow Brook. That would be the next phase, and we're trying to get estimates now from Verizon and National Grid on what that cost would be, and we would anticipate coming back to town meeting, for approval to move forward with the second phase. But again, it's kind of hard to get that excitement and momentum until you see the first phase come to
Yes,
fruition.
yeah.
So it's unclear whether that will be done in time for Springtown meeting.
Oh, I hope so.
Yeah, we're hoping.
I'd love to see that entire center.
Exactly.
And I think that's the plan, right? All the way
Yes.
up to the Stop and Shop Plaza.
That's the plan, long term.
Eventually. I think it's going to look great, especially for the old Town Hall, Chelmsford Center for the
Mm-hmm.
Arts, to finally be able to take pictures there from
As
a
it wa-
distance
as it
without
was,
the
yeah.
wires, which
Right.
look terrible there. And I always have to, if I were
Photoshop
serious,
them
I
out.
could Photoshop them out, yeah. It takes so long, though, to do that. I'd prefer if we just get rid of the wires. It'll look so much better, but thank you,
Yeah.
Paul.
There was another change in the center, and that's the trees gone.
Oh, yeah.
The,
Which
uh,
we
Oh,
haven't
yeah.
talked about.
Oh, what's going to happen with the beech trees? Anybody know yet? We have a committee, right?
There's a committee,
tree
tree
committee.
committee. Tree
But before it did come down, COSS got together with the DPW and the town manager's office and Western Nursery Partners with us.
Yeah.
And at no charge, they took 20 clippings from the tree,
Yeah.
and they took those clippings and they cut them onto root balls.
Yeah.
And so there is actually 20 copies of
That's
the tree which are
fantastic.
growing. And the plan is to graft it. Yes, they're grafted together. So it's the
Yeah.
actual tree.
Yeah.
And they'll be coming back to town sometime either early next year.
Wonderful.
And then the plan is to grow them, split them between the tree nursery, which is an Eagle Scout project at
Yeah.
Sunny Meadow, and then probably Garrison House,
Yeah.
so that the trees are separated in 2 locations in town in
Yes.
case of something catastrophic,
Yeah.
like the Mayan end of the world.
Yep.
We're not going to lose them both.
Yeah.
And then return them back to places
Throughout
around
the
town, probably
One
including
in the
Comm.
center, though, right?
That's a-
right
that's-
there'll be great. Because you remember the picture from 1891 that Fred Merriam found and we posted on Facebook? It was a little twig, the giant beech tree. You could see the picture there, and the students are there. I love those old pictures, by the way. I love historical things. But,
We could be doing that again in
and we
2014
should do
to
that. Make sure we
2015.
take. Well, we take a lot of pictures now these days. Everybody is a
Fred
picture.
does.
Spends his life at it.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be great when we plant that. And also, you have a new community garden up in North Chelmsford now,
Yes,
right? And
Watson
how's that
Street.
going? Was
It-
it all filled up?
It filled up
I mean,
immediately.
really?
It's unique in the fact that we actually have a well there.
Nice.
So some people say that the gardens down south got everything. Well, the gardens up north, when we put them in, Ken Dews donated a well, and he donated a 1,500-gallon tank. So the water is actually pumped directly from the clay underneath into the tank, and the water is crystal clear.
Really?
It's the best water. And then it's out to agriculture in the back. Jones Farm has taken the back, and they brought agriculture back. So from a piece of property that really wasn't doing anything but hay for years, now is a vibrant community garden.
How many
And,
gardens are up
there
there?
are
Or plots?
38.
About 38. Wonderful.
And there's already started to pressure to talk about expansion.
Wow.
And that'll be, we've built one community garden every year for the last 4 years.
You have.
So we've built 4 gardens in 4 years.
Where
Uh,
you have
Three
Sunny
within Sunny
Meadows, the
Meadows.
north, and how many in Sunny? Do you
3.
count 3 in Sunny Meadow? Yeah.
Yeah. The average cost to build a garden, if you're building it in Boston under BNAN, is about $60,000, and we've done it for less than $3,000 per garden.
Wow.
So it's it's
So-
all from donations.
You guys are doing fantastic work. Why did you start this, Phil? And how do you keep going? And you get up at 5:30 in the morning the other day
yeah.
to go do something in the town. You were telling me.
Well,
First,
I have an incredibly supportive, wonderful, and amazing wife. who
Joanne
is-
Stanway?
Yes. Without her support, nothing would get done. And then it's just a matter of there are many, many people out there who want to help. And all you have to do is ask them or connect them. And make it easy. Don't bury them in red tape. And that's all you take. And then you ask, and people show up. You have as much as 75 people who show up for an event. But just make it easy, make it fun, and show them that they're making a difference in town. And that's really the key to anything.
You've made such a difference. The entire group, in Sunny Meadow Farms, yeah, and the Red Wing Farm, what you guys did over there, and Jim Trebo and a lot of people, he's cutting the grass over there a lot. That's the man, the previous citizen of the year. He's in his mid-70s, and he's out there cutting the grass on his own. Nobody knows he's doing this, but all volunteer work for the town.
And
the Red Wing Farm looks fabulous now.
And even the equipment that is there is donated from residents to us. So if you have any equipment, please contact us. It's tax deductible if you'd like to make a donation. Yeah, you'll also get a tax write-off on that because we don't get any funding.
Yeah.
We get almost none. We get $500 a year about. Then we go to CPC, but the rest is all donated out of pockets and donations.
If they wanted to donate, say for gas, or if they wanted to donate some of their old snow throwers like I did.
Since you're asking, if you want to donate it, they just have to call me.
Okay, could you give your number? or is that okay?
978-273-1474. If you have a donation, I'll pick up that phone immediately. And if you want to write a check, it's Town of Chelmsford, Chelmsford, Open Space Stewardship.
I think that's too much on a check, though, Dr. Phil.
As long as it cashes, it's fine.
I mean, can they shorten it a little, like COSS, whatever?
We'll
Okay, good.
As long as it cashes,
I mean,
we'll take it.
that's almost impossible to write in one little line.
We'll just put a big number underneath it to balance it out.
Just got a big check.
So you got that, and we have, what do you have, about 19 properties
We're
now?
active on
you're
19
managing?
sites, and
amazing.
even some schools, some town, some conservation. We partner with the Land Trust. We help scouts. We've even helped some local residents who were working on a project in open space. They've called them up, and because we have all the tools, they're like, sure, we'll come down and help out. You know, give you the tools rather than have to rent them all, and help people out. So it's a great group. We've met so many different people in town.
And how many, in fact, you were telling me one time, don't you take Fridays off from your work and charge it to your vacation time to donate to the town of Chelmsford?
Yeah, all
Because,
Fridays,
like,
every Friday during the summer, I
like
do that.
20
Saturdays,
Fridays or whatever, at least, right, or whatever.
But a lot of
You're
other people
giving
do
up
that.
your vacation then for the people of Chelmsford.
But we have retired people who are giving up, like Jim Trabou gives up 30 to 40 hours a week. We have Elliot Lee, another guy also in his 70s. Tremendous people donating time.
It's
and
amazing.
businesses who take the day off where they could be making money, donating their time. Riley Plumbing.
John Smith,
John
maybe?
Smith, well, John
Ken
Smith,
Dues.
Ken Dues, Rainstay.
Yeah. All
It's
kinds
just
of-
a wonderful town, and
It's
Charlie
amazing.
Wojcik and
Yeah, Charlie.
the people who hide from me.
Yeah.
Jones Farm. But
Yeah, you're good friends with, I know, I see you a lot at the, there's the farmers markets, by the way, the winter farmers markets, every Saturday now through like February, the South Chelmsford Agway, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And I try to stop in every Saturday, say hello to my friends and support them. And I often see you there
Well, it's
supporting.
warm.
Yeah, it's warm. And the Jones's farm is there quite often, and so it's a great place to stop by on Saturday mornings. Very often my friends at the Bill Rickett Cat Care Coalition are there. Sometimes with the cats, which are great, adoptable cats and kittens. Other times they're there with their little blankets to sell in fundraising. But also they have Santa is going to be there for photographs with your pet, I think this coming weekend. And this Friday night is a town party, right, Paul? Is it too late if people want to sign up
No,
for that?
they can come. Yeah, they did.
Great.
I
Just
advise them to come. Yeah, get a hold of Trish.
Get
in
a
the
hold of
office.
Trish at the town manager's office.
Yep.
It's $25 a ticket,
Yep.
and there's a
Yep.
nice meal. There's going to be a DJ,
Yes.
and it's going to be at the Chelmsford Center for the Arts this
Yes.
year, right?
Yes.
And I'll be there, Paul.
Yes.
I have to bring Trish the money maybe tomorrow.
Okay, that's fine.
But I know I don't get everything for nothing, but everybody thinks that. Because I have the TV show. I must get, no, I'm only kidding. So it's a lot of fun, though. I mean, I've gone many times, and Paul and I, though, we're up there dancing a lot, right, Paul?
Yeah.
If there's good music, we're up there dancing.
And plans are already starting to get underway for Winterfest, too, the first
Oh,
weekend in February.
First weekend in February, great.
Right, that's
That'll be
fun.
nice.
We'll be
In
having
fact,
live music at the Winter Farmer Market as a fundraiser.
oh, great.
So we're going to bring
great.
acoustic into the actual farmers
great.
market for that
Oh,
weekend.
I can't believe our time has run out because I was going to make some more comments and announcements of things. But Paul, thank you very much for being on the show again. I really appreciate
Great
it.
to be here again, Carmen.
And I'll see you at our 18th anniversary show in April. Thanks, Paul. Thank you very much, Cara Maria. It was a lot of fun, right?
Yes, oh, great, yep,
And next you got to convince Fred to come on the show.
okay.
Yeah, your husband, Fred. Thank you very much, Steve Roberts.
Thank you for having me,
To
CT.
be on the show. Thanks, and thank you very much,
Always
Phil
a pleasure to
Stanway.
be here.
It's great, all that you do, that you do for the town. Thank you very much, George and Azora and Vilu, our wonderful camera crew tonight, and our great director, Pete Padula. If you have any comments on the show, please send me an email at tcristiano@comcast.net. Also, most of these shows lately have been put on YouTube, so you just type in like Politically Incorrect or my name, and you could find some of the past shows very easily. And thank you very much. I hope you all have a wonderful holiday and a Merry Christmas and a great New Year. Thanks a lot. Ciao.